How's that sound? Can we hear us? All right, we are live on the internet from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. Good Sunday morning, Steeler Nation. John Phillips here. Bill Aikens with me as well. We have an abbreviated pregame show for you this morning. Steelers and Vikings live from Croke Park in Dublin, Ireland. They'll kick off in about 75 minutes. Both teams come in 2-1. Both teams wanting to maintain momentum as the young season progresses to the quarter pole. Of course, the Steelers are facing a bye week. Not a big fan of the early bye weeks, obviously. It seems like the Steelers draw the early bye week straw 7 times out of 10. You would certainly like to see that bye week in October, late October, maybe even early November, but they get the bye week after today's game. So early on, not a ton of injuries. Alex Highsmith is out. Jaylen Warren has been ruled out. Breezy 420 checking in on YouTube this morning to remind us of that. So no Jaylen Warren, which means Caleb Johnson, after the demotion from the miscue against Seattle just a couple weeks ago, didn't see him at all last week, right? Was taken off special teams and did not see a single play in the backfield. He's probably going to see some action today. He's going to probably have to be used. So as Coach T likes to say, next man up. And that's what we're going to get today with no Jaylen Warren, who has gotten off to a slow start. He's had a couple of explosive plays. But as I talked about in the first pregame, Bill, week 1, my concern about Jaylen Warren was the fact that, we saw him 7-8 touches a game, maybe 9 touches a game, maybe 10 touches in a few instances in those first couple seasons as Najee Harris was a reliable, steady back who could carry that load. But people wanted to push him out of town and get Jaylen in there, and he has his yard per carry average has been very low. I think off the top of my head, I think it's like 2.8. It's not good. Has not had a great season to start.
Well, and I've said it before, he's a third down back. He's not your bell cow back. And, he's just not. We've seen that before. It's running back by committee. You got Gainwell, you got the youngster. They need to get this running game going. I mean, if this is a catalyst to do that, then hey, I'm all for it. I mean, not that I don't want to see a guy get injured, but it just hasn't been working for them as of late, and got to get that fixed. So.
Yeah, they most definitely have to get that fixed. We'll see how they do today against the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, so our abbreviated show includes a couple of things this morning, and we're going to tell you a little bit about them right now. By the way, I want to let you know that Arch Masonry and Restoration, one of our proud sponsors here. Of course, we've got the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. But Arch Masonry and Restoration has been with us since day one as well. They are hiring for masons in Pittsburgh. Brick and block work, concrete finishers, and labor help, all needed right now. If you don't have experience on the labor end, that's no problem. You can learn on the job. They have advancement programs and classes that can jumpstart a career in the building trades for you. When most companies are slowing down at this time of year, Arch is ramping up. You can call them and learn more about a career in masonry or concrete at 412-564-5733 or visit archmasonyinc.com to learn more. Breezy 420 checking in. DK and Calvin need to step up as well. Hey, look, the offensive line, if they can give A-Rod time to throw the football. Last week he didn't have a whole lot of time, did he? He was, he didn't get sacked last week, but he was under constant pressure. He got hit, got knocked around. And so that was not very good, Breezy. And I would agree with your assessment. We'll see if DK can cut loose today. We'll talk a little bit about the receivers of the Vikings as well. We're going to do that around 8:45 this morning. Eric Nordquist, who is a midday host on KFan, the Vikings flagship, will be joining us this morning in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Mike Ostie and the Mic Drop about 10 minutes from now. Mike is, of course, the managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. He's also a national writer for Yardbarker. He can be heard on Sirius XM as well. He's carving out a nice career for himself. I'm very happy that Mike is part of our family. No Paul Zeiss this week. He's in Aruba. We got no Zig Fracassi this week. He's on vacation. And so we won't have our NFL Insider segment this week. We won't have Paul this week, but that's okay because I don't have to pay them. The greedy entrepreneurial man that I am. Little joke this morning. Just doing a little comedy. So let's talk a little bit about Derek Harmon and Nick Herbig. They were big impacts last week. Harmon, of course, the first-round draft pick out of Oregon, 6'4", 315. Boy, does he have speed and size, and it really it helped the Steelers last week in their game at New England. The team forced 5 turnovers, but he did help in terms of improvement, I think, with pass rush and also, running the football. I mean, the Patriots did have over 100 yards combined as a team rushing last week, but nobody really stood out. They don't really have any bellwether backs in that setup out there. It was Drake May who actually led the team in rushing. I think he had 46 yards in that loss last week. But clearly Harmon's impact was there. It was definitely there for the Steelers, and he's going to get more playing time, obviously. He was coming off that injury that he suffered in the last preseason game, kept him out of the first couple games. He's definitely going to get a lot more playing time, and they need that for sure. With Highsmith out again, you've got Nick Herbig playing, and he created all kinds of pressure as well. It seemed to actually help T.J. Watt, who had his best performance by far this season. You were happy to see all of that last week. You were taking your notes and watching and commenting throughout the course of the game about how much of an impact that TJ had. Much desperately needed that, for sure.
Well, yeah, and they moved him around a little bit, which I think helped out a little bit as well. When you look at it, I mean, Watt's a game changer that gets schemed out of games. I mean, that's just that's how it is. So moving him in different positions, I mean that's essential in order for him to create the havoc that you need from him. So
yeah, without a doubt. And if you've got somebody on the other side creating havoc, teams are going to try to adjust to that. That will free up Watt, hopefully, a little bit more. Very important to keep that in mind as we start our first 5 segment here this morning. Breezy 420 checking in on YouTube. We love our fans wherever you might be, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok at Steel City Sunday. Our starting D-line should be Hayward, Black, and Harmon. No arguments there.
Yeah.
No arguments there. We'll see.
All for it.
Yeah, and these things tend to play themselves out, is what I would say, right? Coaches make adjustments through the course of the game, some good, some not so good, but we'll see how that thing plays out. Breezy 420 checking in on YouTube early this morning. Let's talk about Carson Wentz. I mentioned in a couple of posts this week that I really think he's the big X factor in this game on the Vikings side of things. Jordan Addison's back this week for Minnesota. That already makes them that much more explosive in the passing side. You've got Justin Jefferson to deal with, and he's gotten off to a slow start. I think he's got 12 catches for a little over 200 yards and just 1 touchdown. Slow by his standards. But you had a second-year quarterback trying to break himself in, and then he gets injured, and then you've got Wentz that comes off the bench and plays, and then had a great game last week, passing the football and running the football. I think the Vikings win if Wentz has a really big game. I think he can be the decision. I think he can be the deciding factor in a Vikings win today, and we'll see how that all plays out. But Wentz still has plenty left in the tank, right? He got the Eagles, to the NFC Championship game. He got hurt. Nick Foles takes over. They win the Super Bowl. He takes back over in the 2020 season, the COVID era, goes down with another injury, and that's when Jalen Hurst came in. And from that point on, it's been Hurst's team, and then he bounced around the league, 4 or 5 different teams, Indianapolis, Washington, Kansas City, just to name a few. lands himself in Minnesota, and now opportunity for him to reestablish himself as a as a legitimate option as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And look, I've always maintained that when it comes to starting quarterbacks, you have the elites that come around every once in a while. Draft classes can be great, and they end up not being, quarterbacks that can get you to a Super Bowl. When it comes to development, it takes time. A lot of quarterbacks just take time. I can't stress it enough. If you look at the league and you look at some of these guys that are 10, 11 years into the league that are performing well now, it's because it took them years to get to that point. Sometimes it just takes years. You have your generational guys, but they're generational guys for a reason, because they are naturally gifted, have that talent and ability, can adapt to the environment that they're in, can adapt to the systems that they're thrown into. And Geno Smith is a perfect example, right? Perfect example. Struggled for years, and then all of a sudden in Seattle 4 years ago, he gets it, right? He gets it. It's just how it works for a lot of quarterbacks. Not all of them, right? You have serviceable quarterbacks. You have quarterbacks that play at higher levels, and then you have the best of the best. And then you have just everybody else, right? You just have everybody else. So that's something that we would keep in mind. Can the Steelers stop a Vikings running game that is averaging 4.8 yards a play? We'll find out about that. And, of course, the history of the Rooney family, Irish heritage, being over there in Dublin today certainly plays a big role. Do we have Mike by any chance? Is he ready? We're going to do our mic drop segment with Mike Oste, managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. Of course, national writer for Yardbarker. I want to be a national writer for Yardbarker, pal.
I can try to hook you up.
With my schedule right now, I don't even have time to breathe. I got to go to a 21 Pilots show tonight after this.
I hear you. And what you don't mention in my intro, also a two-time girl dad taking care of a toddler and a 4-month-old, which I will tell you is another job.
Yeah, but you're in your 30s.
I am in my 30s, yes.
Okay, so I don't want to hear you. Don't even try that. I'm 55 with a 13 and 12-year-old pal.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll eventually get there. Get there.
You'll be gone. You'll be an empty nester at that point.
Well, I guess when I'm in my 50s, maybe. But I'm mostly jealous. I didn't know Paul's in Aruba.
Yes.
See, I'm maybe a little jealous and having some FOMO of our colleagues that are in Dublin, but Paul is in Aruba. I've been to Aruba. I am maybe more jealous of Paul being in Aruba.
I have not been to Aruba. I've been to Dominican Republic. I've been to
Aruba
Puerto Rico. I've been to okay.
Aruba,
Puerto Rico. Yeah, no, have not been there. We'll see. I think we're heading towards a company trip this year, thanks mostly to me and my awesomeness. But we'll have to suggest that because I hear a lot of great things about Aruba. It's I like the islands, the blue water and the sands.
Yeah.
It's nice down there in that neck of the world. Okay. Mike Oste, forgot to tell you, everybody, he's on Sirius XM as well. You can hear him on there as well. So, Mike, win last week. Not a great opponent, but the defense did play their best game by far. They forced the turnovers. They forced 5 turnovers, 4 fumbles, and an interception that came off a deflection from Cam.
Yeah.
Different opponent this week. By far the best team they're facing this year so far. I don't think there's any question about that. Let's start with the defense. And I assess that, Carson Wentz is going to be the big factor here for the Steelers. Can they neutralize him? You say what you want about Wentz, and he's bounced around in his career. Everything was going well until he had that horrific injury in Philadelphia, and then eventually re-injured, and then losing his starting job to Jalen Hurst, who's done pretty good for himself. Talk to me a little bit about that whole dichotomy of the Steelers' defense and Wentz. How do they attack him? How does he attack the Steelers and their secondary?
Yeah, it's very interesting because Wentz is only playing because JJ McCarthy is hurt, but you can make an argument that Wentz maybe gives the Vikings a little bit of a shot in the arm that they were kind of missing a little bit after the explosion of JJ McCarthy having that great debut game and then kind of dipping out and showing the rookie growing pains. And we talked even last week that the Steelers, when they face a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback, they usually feast, they bring the pressure. That's what they would have done if JJ McCarthy was out there. With Wentz, I would imagine it's going to be a similar strategy, even though he's a veteran QB. And knock on wood for him that he doesn't get hurt, because as you mentioned, that's really been his issue throughout his career. He's never been able to really get going. And I do think people forget, not only was he the driving force of the Eagles that did win a championship with Nick Foles eventually at the helm in the postseason, he was the favorite to win NFL MVP at that point. Those 11 games with Wentz at that point were historic for the Eagles. And then it became a controversy there. The fan base got polarized there on who they stick with. He was younger. Foles was a career backup despite winning the title. Gave him a little bit more of an opportunity. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Hurts took over and then now has become the Eagles legend and allowed them to go to 2 more Super Bowls and win one and probably be a Hall of Famer someday at his trajectory. But there was something there from Wentz at one point. Do I think Wentz is ever going to be that guy again? No. I do think injuries have kind of robbed Wentz of a solid career. I do think Wentz is going to be that what-if story, probably bounce around again. He's not going to be the future of the Minnesota Vikings. They've clearly made that JJ McCarthy. Win or lose, he's going to be the future. He's going to be their starter next year. Whenever he's healthy, he's going to go back in, I would imagine. That's why they didn't pay Sam Darnold. They're giving it to JJ McCarthy. But for one game, you can make an argument that right now that Wentz might be better to lead them in this game, certainly off of what went on last week. And I would imagine that the Steelers are going to try to do what they did last week, though. They're going to try to bring the pressure. They're going to try to get aggressive. They're going to try to force turnovers. And Wentz is going to have a quick release. But with Addison coming back and with the weapons that they have and how that team works and how that offense works, because game plan wise, it's one of the better offensive coaching staffs in football as well. That's kind of how it's been a car wash of whoever's in there. They've had success. Wentz could maybe generate big plays. I'm not out here thinking Wentz is going to throw for 350 and 3 TDs, but they could still give you enough to get wins over the Steelers, because as we've seen from the Steelers so far, they've had their struggles even with quarterbacks. And yeah, they forced all the turnovers last week. Forced is the key word that you threw out there. That was the debate last week on, I do think they forced some, and you have to give them credit for forcing them, but they also were helped a little bit with some really poor throws and some really bad mistakes that were uncharacteristic of what you'd want out of a veteran quarterback that they were facing. So they need to keep doing it again. That's what I wrote on Yardbarker. I need to see it again.
Okay.
I need to see it against the quarterback that's not going to just hand them to you. I need to see that again to really be confident in the Steelers defense that was kind of the problem the first 2 weeks. So will Wentz make those mistakes? And if he kind of manages the game and then gives you 1 or 2 big plays, that could kind of be enough to at least make this close. But the Steelers should be able to do enough in this game, because you would imagine they have the better quarterback.
Yes, you would think they do have the better quarterback for sure. They forced at least 2 fumbles, I know for sure, and then, of course, that interception came off a deflected pass. Bill Aikens joining us. Bill has a question for you this morning.
Well, no, Mike. I mean, I would say the Vikings' offensive line is pretty vulnerable. I mean, they've allowed 12 sacks so far. So I think, it's pertinent that they get to the quarterback and try and force turnovers and disrupt that offense. I mean,
that's what the Steelers do. They're going to do that against anybody. That's always going to be their strategy. It especially works when you're facing a young rookie type quarterback, which maybe JJ McCarthy would have been for them. Maybe it could have worked more with him, although he does have more of an ability to scramble and be mobile. So maybe Wentz, who's not going to really do that as much, can maybe even be easier for you. It depends on how it goes. I kind of do see this going one of two ways, similar to last week. This either could be a day that the Steelers feast again, generate turnovers again, generate sacks again, because as you mentioned, the Vikings O-line is vulnerable to allow that. Maybe this will even be easier for them than last week. Or maybe Wentz can at least be careful enough with the football and kind of have this career renaissance a little bit. Not to say he's going to do what Geno Smith has done for several years, or even what Flacco's been doing with Cleveland, but maybe kind of give you that I'll take care of the football and then give you one or two big plays and catch somebody. And then if the Vikings win, probably more of a 23-20 type of score. But we will definitely see. Right now, Wentz is giving Vikings fans a little bit more confidence than they probably would have had if he was the quarterback going into the season, based on what he just did.
So the news just broke about 30 minutes ago. Jaylen Warren out for today's game.
Yeah.
Patrick Bernard is going to probably see the bulk of the carries. Caleb Johnson maybe an opportunity to, kill some of those demons from a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Patrick Bernard checking in on Facebook this morning says you got to go with Wentz early. He can ball out when called upon. Wentz has an arm and a quick release. Look,
if he fires off the quick release, you could see a big play, 100%.
Yeah, and that's going to be predicated on the Steelers' front getting some pressure on him. And that's where Derek Harmon, I think, plays a bigger role for this team. Clearly, he made an impact last week, Mike.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. And he had to, and he did. So needing to see more of that. But as we talked about in the prior shows, the pressure's on TJ Watt, the pressure's on Cam Hayward because of their contract disputes and because of just being the veterans on this team, and the pressure on the overall group. And they did step up. Even if you think it was aided, and I kind of do think they were helped a little bit, but they still forced some of them. So even if you only give them credit for 2 or 3 of them and not all 5, that's still really, really good. And Cam Hayward forced a lot of that success on defense. He really had a great game. Of course, TJ Watt got on the board finally with a sack. So they need to keep on stepping up. But yeah, Harmon had a really solid day. The difference with Wentz than JJ McCarthy, from what we've seen so far with McCarthy being so young, Wentz has that quick release that he can fire it off even with pressure. And then you have Addison out there who's a burner, and maybe that could be a big play or so. But the Steelers also need to establish something on offense so that the defense is not on the field all day, every day, especially in this game after traveling and dealing with media and everything going on this week. Some of these older players, if they're out on the field every 30 seconds because the offense doesn't move the ball or because they can't establish a run game, that then makes it easier maybe for the Vikings to try to call those big plays and then really demoralize them early.
We're talking with Mike Ostie, managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites, also a national writer for Yardburger, heard on Sirius XM NFL Radio, and two-time girl dad. Two-time
girl dad, 3-year-old and almost 4-month-old. So two-time girl dad.
Let's go back to the Warren injury here. I was concerned. I was concerned at the beginning of the season. I said in the first pregame show we did, can he be an everyday back with 20-plus carries? He has struggled. He's had a couple of explosive plays, but not nearly enough, predicated again on the problems the offensive line has had. But nonetheless, now you say to yourself, oh wow, where's Najee Harris when you need him, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got to go. Yeah. Now you've got backups essentially playing today. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to dismiss these two that are, on this team, but the fact of the matter is that, as Dylan Green checks in on YouTube, says losing Warren is huge.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this whole situation here?
Yeah, that's the issue. Losing Warren is huge, and it's because they don't have Najee Harris or anyone who really is a featured back on this roster. And unfortunately for Najee Harris, the luck would have it that he's out for the year and he's not able to enjoy success out on the West Coast with the Chargers. That's unfortunate for him, but he was a consistent every down back, and people can say what they want about him. There always were the critics that he wasn't truly elite enough. He wasn't really worth the draft pick, etc. And I remember, if you remember, I know that was when you were down south, but that was the great Pittsburgh sports media debate, whether or not you draft a running back in the first round, whether or not that's worth it or not. I thought it wasn't, just because you're not going to get enough years out of him, and usually
Right.
you do no longer have them after 4 years. That's what happened, even though he was productive. But nonetheless, he's gone. And I don't believe Warren is an everyday, every down featured back who's going to give you 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, and be a Pro Bowler either. So I don't believe that is him. However, I don't believe anyone else in the roster is that guy either. And if you're going to do it by committee, Warren needs to be there. So now this really can make it harder on an aging veteran quarterback like Rodgers. He's not going to run himself. He needs time with the football. The offensive line got to protect, but he needs a run game to establish itself to then open up the passing game. And if they can't get the running game established, that's where the ceiling's going to be with Aaron Rodgers, only so high. And that really could be an issue today. I don't know how they're going to establish it. Why should I be confident in a run game establishing itself that has not been able to do it with Warren on the field? And now you take him off and you don't put anybody on the field that has any cachet or any reason for fans to be optimistic.
Well, and I think that's the reason why the Colts are looking so good right now, because you have Jonathan Taylor that is just making it easy for Danny Dimes, and so.
That can make it easy for any quarterback. No matter how good, bad, or indifferent that quarterback is, having a run game that actually consistently moves the ball. And if you go to it on first down, if that running back can get 4 yards and make second down, 2nd and 6, and then you get a couple there, you already have a manageable situation. And even if you pass on first down and you get a few on a chunk, then you can try to decide whether run or pass on second down, because it's still second and mid. And then on third down, if it's 3rd and 2 or 3, you want to be able to hand it off to that running back and get those yards. And if you can't get those yards, then you're dropping the quarterback back, whether he's in maybe he's in shotgun, but if not, you're dropping the quarterback back, and then you're trying to rely on Aaron Rodgers at his age to throw those short routes, or maybe catch somebody napping, or try to throw a big play. But big plays are more difficult when you have no running game. There's no play action. There's no catching the defense off guard. A lot goes into needing a running game, and I don't have any confidence the Steelers have a running game, especially without Warren out there. So if they lose this game, a major talking point, as it's been all year, is going to be the running game struggles. Where's the running game? It hurts Rodgers. The passing game only does so much without the running game. And then if Wentz throws a big play or two and their defense holds on, no matter what sacks the Steelers are generating, that could be a recipe for a Vikings win.
Real quickly, Mike, before we let you go, and I believe we got Eric Nordquist probably standing by from K-Fan up in Minneapolis to join us for Behind Enemy Lines. Steelers trip to Dublin. This is according to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. Skylar Thompson apparently robbed Friday night. Wow. Got into a scuffle. He got jumped and robbed Friday night in Dublin.
I mean, I guess that's stereotypical Ireland. I did not hear that, actually. It sucks for him. But that...
Yeah, it just came on X about 45 minutes ago. Suffering minor injuries, probably a little bruised ego. Real quickly. And that's pretty crazy, right?
You hate to live up to a stereotype, but that is the stereotype of the country and of Dublin, and they fulfill it there with the NFL players coming to town.
Quick prediction before we let you go.
I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be similar to last week, but the Vikings maybe could catch him with a big player. So I'm going to say Steelers 26-23. This is a critical game for the Steelers, though, as they get into more of the heart of their schedule, a little bit, difficult schedule stretch coming up here. They need to get this, but the lack of running game really does give me pause. I think Rodgers maybe musters it up enough here, but would not be shocked at all if the Vikings get this W, because there is no running game and Wentz does enough.
Mike Oste with the mic drop, managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, part of the Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites, national writer for Yardbarker, heard on Sirius XM. Mike, as always, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Have a good day. Have a good morning watching football.
Yes.
It's kind of nice and unique. It's almost like we're on the West Coast. So
it is, and I used to live on the West Coast, and it's pretty amazing to watch football out there with the time difference. All right, thanks, sir.
Yep.
All right. Mike Oste joining us for his weekly hit every week, the mic drop and Mike Oste. And with that, we're going to switch out and bring in Eric Nordquist, our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Right there from K-Fan in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There he is. Been a a staple of sports talk radio in Minneapolis for more than a decade, handles post-game duties on the Vikings flagship. Eric Nordquist joining us here this morning. Good morning, Eric. Thanks for coming on board with us.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I must say I love the backdrop. I love the vibe of everything going on, the flair with your previous guest. Meanwhile, I have like kids' toys in the background of mine. I need to be a bit more professional as I join Steel City Sunday.
Listen, the fact that you're even giving us some of your time early in the great state of Minnesota of 10,000 lakes means a whole great deal to us. It's actually a pretty cool bar. It's decked out in all kinds of Steeler stuff. They got all kinds of signs. There was a famous sign from the 70s Steelers that said, "You're in Steelers country." They got a bunch of that, bunch of black and gold tinsel. Everybody's dressed in Steelers stuff. It's pretty cool. We're very lucky to have this show. I literally put this together a week before the season started. So, we're a couple sponsors in, and we're just getting started. And it's nice to be able to talk with professionals like yourself that, are willing to give a new show like ours some time. So, you've been covering sports for quite a while now in Minneapolis. Obviously, K-Fan, the dominant force in sports in that market, radio-wise for sure. Let's talk a little bit about this Vikings team. Sam Darnold leaves. J.J. McCarthy's ascension up has that good first game in the Monday Nighter against Chicago on the road, and then kind of stumbles in week 2, and then all of a sudden it's now Carson Wentz. So maybe your assessment of the first 3 games of the season that you've seen so far from this 2-1 Vikings team, please.
Yeah, and you mentioned it really from the gates, and listening to your previous guest, this team made a decision last offseason that this was going to be the launch point for J.J. McCarthy into 2025. This was it. It wasn't, we couldn't figure out the money with Sam Darnold, or you look at Daniel Jones down in Indianapolis, backup here, and now his team's 3-0 on the back of Jonathan Taylor, making things a lot easier for him down there. But this was the decision. We were going to move forward with J.J. McCarthy, and bringing Carson Wentz in was less about it, at the time at least, even what we're seeing now with him on the field, as much as you didn't like what you were getting out of Sam Howell in the backup role. Brett Rippon was another short-term option, a camp opportunity for him. But Wentz comes in, and yes, it was J.J. McCarthy from the gates. I do believe in the long term that is still the plan once he's healthy and happy and gets a chance to practice fully. But through the 8 quarters that J.J. McCarthy has played, he's played one good quarter, and that happened to be, you mentioned week 1, the Monday Nighter, the 4th quarter. He generates 3 consecutive touchdown drives. Vikings fans get to go home from Soldier Field happy. But other than that, you're seeing timing issues, significant problems across the offensive line, some of the decision-making. He's made a few bad passes. Really, despite it being his second year, last year, of course, taken away due to injury, despite this being his second year, you're really watching kind of a rookie try to grow up. And this team is talented enough, and the defense, when healthy, is good enough that you can sustain some of those growing pains. But frankly, it was just awful. And whether it's the left tackle situation with Justin School, thankfully Christian Darrisaw is back in the mix. You invest a ton of money in the offseason in Will Fries, former Colt. Ryan Kelly, longtime former Colt as well. Fries just okay. He's kind of recovering from his own injury. Ryan Kelly, it was a toe and then a concussion. He's back today against the Steelers. So the combination of injuries, the combination of raising a kid on the fly, it's been really, really ugly at times. So Carson Wentz rolls in here, I think 6 consecutive years starting for a different team, and there was calm, there was poise, and that in combination with the defense that generated a couple of touchdowns on its own and just absolutely obliterated the Bengals and Jake Browning last week. This was kind of like this rising, the Undertaker rising from the coffin, like, oh yeah, that's right, we're still talented, we can do this. So it's been bumpy, it's been nasty, it's been gritty at times and straight up ugly. But the team is 2-1, so lots of good things to feel good about into this game against the Steelers today.
And I maintain that, and this is probably fair from any position in football or in sports in general, but especially when we're talking about the quarterback position, because that's your catalyst, and teams live and die by their quarterback. This league, you've got a handful of generational types that you're going to see, right? Everybody talks about, hey, this draft class of quarterbacks is going to be great. Nobody's great. This draft class has got average. talent, somebody turns out to be really good. It truly is a league that takes time, especially at that position. I talk about Geno Smith as being a great example of that, right? Came into the league out of West Virginia, right? They won that big Orange Bowl game against Clemson. It was like 70-14 or whatever the score was. He comes in, gets drafted by the Jets, and just struggles through his career. Then all of a sudden, a couple years ago in Seattle, a rebirth for him. And, he's been I don't want to say he's been top tier, but he's been a very good quarterback, consistent enough where, you don't have to worry about that position. And his maturation has gotten to the point where he can lead a team. You mentioned about Wentz, looked really poised, right? And maybe that's part of it now because he's been in the league since, 2016, 2017?
2016 he was drafted.
Yeah, 2016, coming out of North Dakota State. And so, they benefit from, our young quarterback who's in his second year is banged up. We've got this guy to come in here, and look what he did last week against a team that obviously didn't have their field general and won't for the majority of the season. But it's nice for Viking fans and especially that franchise to feel good about handing the reins over to somebody who – is it this week only? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? If they continue to get that production from him, what type of decision lies down the road with moving Wentz back out and McCarthy back in?
Yeah, and we've talked a bunch about that back here too. Kind of the idea, what does lights out look like? Because if while McCarthy is hurt and Carson Wentz goes quote unquote lights out, well, what does that mean? Does that mean 300 yards and 3 TDs a game? Does that mean kind of in field general game manager? There's a negative connotation to the idea of managing the game, right. But there's a professional aspect to that counts for W's too. So the 14-20, $173-ish that he had last weekend and a couple of scores. The key to that, he didn't turn the ball over, took a few sacks. Is that playing lights out? Is that enough to tell you that actually when the kid QB is healthy, we have to fully adjust this development plan because Wentz has just shown us some sort of aura and ability that the kid just doesn't have at this stage, and maybe it's subject to change. I don't see that plan changing. I do believe that once J.J. McCarthy is fully healthy, that you will see him return to the field in some capacity. And it doesn't necessarily mean, and Coach Kevin O'Connell had said it himself, if he gets a clean bill of health on a Saturday night before a game, that doesn't mean he's starting Sunday. I need full good weeks of practice first before we thrust him back into the mix. But we haven't gotten to see him play behind a healthy offensive line. Jordan Addison, I was listening. That's been a talker as part of this show thus far. Jordan Addison returning from suspension. Yep. The chemistry between those two in camp. Jordan Addison may have actually been the best player of all Vikings in training camp. The ability to get him healthy, or I should say returning from suspension in this case. I do believe that the development plan stays the same because Kevin O'Connell handpicked this guy. Love this kid into the draft, out of the draft, and everything about him leading up to the 2024 preseason and camp. This is the kid that Kevin O'Connell has identified, and I believe he's going to stick to that plan wholeheartedly.
Eric Nordquist joining us here on Behind Enemy Lines. Eric is a midday host, been in Minnesota for more than a decade talking sports. You can find him on X at MadProducer1. That's an interesting handle. You start off as a producer and then find your way on the air? Is that how it all worked out?
Yeah, well, producer sidekick, 9 to noon Central Time here in Minneapolis with voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen. He's going to be setting the scenery for us on the flagship from Croke Park. And it was more of a play of just me going mad, as in insane, as part of some of my duties on the show. But it's all in fun. Yeah, it's an odd handle. I've been told for marketing purposes, like, can't you just use your name? I'm like, I changed it. It's exhausting trying to change the handle. I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick with it.
I like it. I think it has a little edge to it, and that's never a bad thing in sports talk. Hey, so the Steelers have fared poorly against teams when it comes to stopping the run. Now, look, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, they don't jump off the page, but you're averaging like 4.8 yards a run. And I know quarterback, numbers play into that as well, but what do you think from the running game today? Can they exploit a defense that has been terrible against the run? They gave up back-to-back 100-yard rushers in the first 2 weeks, and then another 100-yard performance collectively by the Patriots last week. They've been terrible against the run. They rank in the bottom of all the stats in terms of defensive running. Can the Vikings take advantage there today?
Well, I hope they try. It's been a conversation since Kevin O'Connell became head coach here that this is a pass-first offense. This is about scheming guys open. This is about finding explosives. You'll see statistically that the Vikings have been among the best in the NFL in terms of the number of 20-plus yard completions in a season. And that has been kind of the trademark, specifically with Justin Jefferson. Now, the quarterback situation lends to the idea of, well, if we can't get those, if we can't find those, then we got to do something else. The commitment of the interior, the O-line that I talked about in combination with adding Jordan Mason in the offseason has been about as part of raising J.J. McCarthy. We need to develop a run game that teams at least respect. We're not going to be – this isn't Ravens Midwest over here, but this can be an operation that is efficient, can be explosive, as you mentioned, the per-carry average. Let's tick that up a bit. Can we just on 3rd and short – do we have to be a 70% passing team, or can we just move human beings backwards and move the chains on the ground? Jordan Mason has proven through 3 games that he might be part of that answer. Aaron Jones, when he returns, it's still going to be a 50-50 tandem operation. He's better catching the ball out of the backfield. He might be better in pass protection as well. But Jordan Mason was terrific. But that's not going to be, again, it's not going to be 40 carries today. He had 16, right, I believe, last week against the Bengals. It was 7.3 a clip. Terrific day for him overall. A couple of scores. His first 2 TD game, I believe, of his career. But that will be, you will see those moments where it's Mason for 5. It's Mason for 7. It's Mason for 4. And you might see some of those little string it together, rush happy moments from the Vikings head coach. It's very, very, very important today as Vikings fans that you see that. Not so much as Steelers fans, but as Vikings fans, if you see Jordan Mason up there in that 80, 90 yard range, and you see the Vikings with 120 plus yards of rushing, I have to say I think the Vikings' chances of winning would be very high.
I would agree with you as well, and as is usually the case in the NFL, when you can put the yardage on the ground, you can control clock, you can keep that opposing offense on the sideline, wear that defense out, and that generally spells good things for the teams that can do so. Just a couple more moments with Eric Nordquist, midday host from K-Fan, the Vikings flagship. He also does their post-game show as well. Check him out on X at Mad Producer 1. Brian Flores, he was here, of course. What happened in Tampa happened to Tampa. He comes to Pittsburgh, and then he leaves. And now you guys have him as a defensive coordinator. Can you talk a little bit about his impact? What have been your thoughts of having Brian Flores in that organization?
It's been, a pleasure of pleasures, to be honest with you. And I must admit that when I saw him go to the Steelers, and we know about the lawsuit and stuff going on with the NFL, I was thinking to myself, just that connection there when he was, I forget what his title was, some sort of defensive assistant.
Yes.
And I just thought, well, this makes sense as Tomlin, as tenured as he is, early 50s now, I believe. This might be the baton tossing situation here with Flores eventually becoming head coach of the Steelers. Right. And, the Rooneys, by the way, your organization does not make head coaching decisions rashly or lightly. 3
That's
guys
right.
going back to Noel, late 60s. So that's what I thought, just kind of just being a rube and just being a sports fan and pondering it. He comes here, completely reshapes our defense. It's having an additional head coach, and I'm sure in short order you guys felt that experience as well. Obvious former head coaching experience. The defense is chaotic. The defense is hard to explain. The defense can be amoebic and just odd at times. But the way that he's galvanized veteran players like a Harrison Smith. You have Jonathan Grenard, newer face here, but guys that he identified via free agency. Ivan Pace, an undrafted linebacker out of Cincinnati. Brian Flores identified him. And just from a coaching standpoint, a personnel standpoint, everything is better and borderline high-end, super high-end when everybody's healthy, which the Vikings minus Blake Cashman, who's on IR with a hammy, The D-line, the defensive front with Jonathan Allen and Hargrave, again, guys that Flores was pounding the table for in the offseason to add. I'm just so impressed with him as a person, and just so impressed with, again, very short order. He completely changed the frame of this defense.
Real quickly, Eric, before we let you go, prediction on today's game.
Well, I think it's a touchdown game. I do believe that the Vikings win. Shocking Midwestern guy, tater tot hot dish and mild salsa is going to stick with his home team and what's comfy. I think the ability to run the ball. I think Rodgers is in trouble today without Jalen Warren. Caleb Johnson, hopefully he gets back into good graces. Your secondary is getting healthier, but it might not be healthy enough yet. And I do think that the Vikings would win. It'll be something like a 20-13 style game.
Favorite Juicy Lucy in Minneapolis, by the way, before I let you go.
Oh, it's Matt's Bar, and it's not close. There's no debate. There's no discussion. It's Matt's Bar. Check it out.
My man, Eric Nordquist, midday host, K-Fan Radio, Vikings flagship, Mad Producer 1 on X. You're my man, buddy. Thanks for doing this for us. We appreciate your time.
Hey, cheers. Take care, you guys. Have fun today.
All right, thank you. Mad Producer 1, that's Eric Nordquist joining us from Minneapolis on our pregame show. We are just at the 9 o'clock hour, about another 12 or 13 minutes before we say goodbye and get you ready for Steelers and Vikings. John Phillips here, live at the North Park Lounge, Richland and the Hilltop Event Center. This is Steel City Sunday, live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and hopefully TikTok soon. Little weird thing going on there. It used to be like you had to have 1,000 followers. You got to have 50 now. We'll figure this all out at some point in time. I do want to talk to you real quickly before I bring in Bill here. I got a huge announcement in our post game show. Huge announcement. I've been teasing it all week. We have a new partnership with a Steelers-centric website that is official and beginning in 2 weeks. On the 12th, we're going to be doing something a little bit different in our pregame show. So we'll talk about that in postgame after Steelers-Vikings. In the meantime, I want to bring in Bill here as the show rolls along. Lively crowd filing in here already for this game from Ireland. Lots of fans already coming into the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Events Center. Billy, how you feeling about today's game? Any thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I have mixed emotions. I mean, I think, I still say, there's a lot of vulnerability with that Vikings offensive line. I think you need to take advantage of that. Another thing I think the Steelers need to start drives fast. And what I mean by that is they need to just, I think you need to do effective play action. I think you need to try to achieve better yardage on some of these plays. Setting up manageable second and third down situations, I think, is going to be pivotal in this game. But I think you really got to, they're currently one of the worst teams on first down, averaging 4.1 yards per play, and that's not good. I think you need to just, they need to go up tempo and just try to, take advantages of the possession each time. And I think, that's going to be key and pivotal at this point. So
I don't disagree with that. I think they're going to have I don't have any faith in the run defense at all now. I mean, it's great that they've got Harmon in there, and yeah, he helps some. But maybe because the Vikings are having issues with their offensive line, they can maybe limit the Vikings running the football. Again, I go to Carson Wentz, and I talk about his maturation and at this stage in his career where he's in his 10th season essentially. And, yeah, he's bounced around a lot after getting his career moving along in Philadelphia. The fact of the matter is that this defense still struggles against the run. And if Wentz has any kind of time, and the fact that, they're getting Jordan Addison back, J.J. Jefferson is a demon of a wide receiver to play against, it's a cause for concern. Right? So we'll see how and then the fact that you don't have Jalen Warren playing.
Right.
So now you're going into your depth chart, second teamers, and You got the rookie who already has maybe some head issues, concerns, lots of concerns. It seems like week to week with this team, but I think that's the way it is in the NFL, and it has been quite some time now with this franchise.
Well, you talk about the Steelers' defense. I'm going to say this, too. You got to win the battles on third down. This is a crucial factor for the Steelers. You've got to be able to – the third down defense right now is struggling. It is struggling. I think they allow the second most yards per play in the NFL. So, you know, you gotta be able to force 3 and outs with the Vikings and you know, keep that offense off the field as much as you can. But yeah, run defense has been atrocious. I mean, we know Aaron Jones is going to be out today for them, so you know they need to keep a you know, like I said, keep the Vikings offense off the field as much as you can.
All right, we're going to do our Consigs Pick segment brought to us by Arch Masonry and Restoration. Arch Masonry and Restoration is hiring here in Pittsburgh. And, folks, I've worked with Arch Masonry for over a decade. Professional organization, care about their employees. Great programs, not just for health care, 401k, retirement, and bonuses, but they're hiring right now. If you're a professional brick and block layer who's looking for work, if you're a concrete finisher, if you're somebody who is on the labor end, and even if you're a laborer and with no experience, if you're looking to get a jump start to a career in the construction trades, that's no problem. Arch Masonry can help you. They've got advancement programs and classes that can get that career moving forward in the right direction when it comes to masonry and concrete. Call 412-564-5733 or visit archmasonryinc.com to learn more. Let's talk Consigs picks. Last week, 2-3 for me. Paul Zeiss went 4-1. We were a game away from it being 3-2. That's how it goes when you wager some chocolate chip cookies. We'll start with the Vikings and Steelers. I think the Steelers have been treating this like a field trip, and I think that they're ripe for the pickings today with Minnesota. I'm going to lay the 2.5 and take the Vikings today early. When we look at the 1 o'clock slate, a couple games that come to mind. Buffalo and New Orleans. The Bills are a 14.5-point favorite at home against the Saints. The Saints have been listless all season long. I'll fade that team until the wheels come off. I'll take Buffalo laying 2 touchdowns and a hook. Cleveland at Detroit. That game right now sitting at 10 has pretty much been 10 all week. Tickets and money all split, although Detroit money line at minus 600 has been hit pretty heavy. I'm taking the Browns plus 10. I like the Browns plus 10 today. Carolina and New England, another 1 o'clock game I want you to look at. The Panthers on the road plus 5.5. Last week they got their first win of the season, a 30-0 whitewashing of Atlanta. They were dogs at home. They covered outright. Looking at the numbers here, a lot of people like the Panthers on the tickets. Money line very much in favor of New England. I'll take the 5.5. I think Carolina covers. And then the last game that I'm looking at today, which should be, there's a couple good games here. Philadelphia at Tampa Bay, another 1 o'clock game. Tampa Bay plus 3.5. They're at home. Both teams 3-0. Monster game in the NFC. Could decide who could be the number 1 seed by the end of the season. Jalen Hurst, it's his Achilles. When he faces Tampa, 1-4 straight up in his career. I'll take the 3.5 at home. Give me Tampa Bay. That's 5 picks for you. I'll do one more just because I think it's important. At 4:25, Baltimore at Kansas City. The Chiefs and Ravens are 1-2. I can't even imagine which one of these two teams is going to be 1-3. I'll take Kansas City plus the 2.5. Those are my 6 picks today. Pittsburgh, Minnesota minus 2.5. Cleveland plus 10. Buffalo minus 14.5. Carolina plus 5.5. And Kansas City plus 2.5. Some final thoughts from Bill Akins before we wrap up today's show live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. It is Steel City Sunday. Bill, final thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think this is going to be a good game. I mean, I think it's I too agree with you. I think the Steelers are kind of making this into a little bit of a field trip. I hope it doesn't hurt them, but the Vikings. This is a winnable game, right?
Yeah,
it's a losable game as well. So, it just I don't know. I just think that this is when you look at it, the Vikings are undefeated in international games, 4-0, and the Steelers have an 0-1 record. So,
and of course they lost that one game in London a decade ago against the Vikings. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us here. We're at the North Park Richland Hilltop Event Center. Don't forget, post-game show immediately following this game. Jerry DePaula joins us around 1 o'clock. Huge announcement as well regarding a new partnership we have with one of the Pittsburgh sports websites. Very excited to talk about that around 1 o'clock as well with Jerry D. For Bill Akins, I'm John Phillips. Enjoy today's game from Dublin at Croke Park, Steelers and Minnesota Vikings. And thanks for joining us here on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. It is Steel City Sunday, live from the North Park Lounge, Richland, and the Hilltop Event Center. We'll see you after today's game.